Welcome, everyone. Welcome, students and teachers. We have a great hour planned for you. We are going to meet some real live Googlers. But before we do get started, I just want to introduce myself quickly and tell you just a little bit about what's going to happen. So my name is Michelle Armstrong. I am one of the co-founders of the Cobblestone Collective. Thrilled to be able to work with teachers and students across Canada with all sorts of programming, and love that we're able to work with Googlers today. Before we get started, though, I just want to take a moment. We're all joining from all across Canada, and we are on lands where people were here before us. And I'd like us to take a moment just to think about who was here before us. And me personally, I'm coming to you from Calgary. This is Treaty 7 land, which is the Blackfoot, the Siksika, the Piikani, the Kainai, Tsuut'ina, the Stoney Nakoda, and as well the Métis of Region 3. And you'll notice there's a link on that slide as well, native-land.ca. If you're not really sure who inhabits your land or inhabited it before us, that's a beautiful website that shows you all of the different nations and cultures that are on the lands all around us. So with that, thank you for that. And I'm going to turn things over to the Googlers. Sandra Curry, tell us a little bit more about what we're going to be doing.
Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. My name is Sandy Curry, STEM Program Manager for Google Canada, and we're happy to have a little bit of time with you. In this role that I have, one of the most common comments that I hear from Googlers is that they wish that when they were in high school that they had someone that they could have heard a little bit about tech, heard a little bit about tech companies, a little bit about CS, pathways. So we've put this presentation together for you, and we're calling it Wayfinders, because I think you'll see after you meet Brooke and Jeff and Bob and Mackenzie that everybody finds their own way. There's not one path, there are many paths, and we're hoping that you might be inspired by hearing a little bit from each of them. So without anything further from me, I think we can get rolling. Michelle.
All right. Well, you guys are coming to us, or we're coming to you through YouTube Live, which is great. It means that you can pause us at any point. You can rewind us. You can even replay this later. So students, if it's going too fast, if you're working from home, pause us at any point. Teachers, if you would like to show this to other classes, by all means, you can replay this. The recording will be there after we're done. But that's the beauty of YouTube Live. One minor thing that's not so great, well, you guys can see us. We can't see you, and we can't hear you. But there is a way that you can communicate with us, and we're going to test this out now. So we have a form. Students, what we want you to do right now, jump into a new tab. In that new tab, we want you to type in that link you see below, cc.page/Google Tour. It's a Google form. You're going to put your name in there. And right now, I want you to tell us, where are you joining us from? Which town or city or province? Just let us know. Where are you joining us from? Maybe you even want to tell us what grade you're in. This is going to be your way to communicate with us. Especially, this is going to be your way to ask Googlers questions. So go ahead. Let's do that now. We can see your responses coming in on our end. So let us know. What's your name? Where are you joining us from? What grade are you in?
And Michelle, I'm just going to do a little shout out as well. I think we may have some other Googlers, maybe even from around the world, and maybe some shadowers joining us. And we'd love if you would pop your names into that form so that we know that you're with us as well. Look at the names streaming in, Michelle. It's great.
Excellent. Yes, we have Marco is here, grade 8 in Ontario. Julianne from Mississauga. Umar from, wow, Karachi, Pakistan. Amazing. Welcome. Kavya, you're from Ajax. Vivek is here. Kat is here. Oscarus, Risha, Gabriella, Christian, Mr. Chan, Kennedy, Shiloh. Wow. Okay. The names are coming in fast and furious. This is fantastic. What this means, you'll be able to communicate with us. You'll be able to get your questions to the Googlers. We're so excited for the next hour.
All right, loving it. So we always like to know, what we're going to do in the next. I think we have about 55 minutes left together. So this is our agenda. We're going to share a few agreements with you just to make sure that things go well today. We're going to talk a little bit about computer science and the fact that it's changing everything. We want to do some introductions for you. Again, meeting our Googlers and listening to the way that they found themselves at Google. And we'll do a little live Q&A. It'll be your chance to chat to these guys and ask them whatever it might be that you're interested in. And we will end off with some real concrete resources that you'll be able to dig into, explore a little more when your time with us is done today. So we're looking forward to moving on, and I'm noticing these names streaming in. We've got Harsh in grade 12 from Mississauga, Fatma. We've got Nairi, Kyla, Eric. Wow, we've got folks coming in from Pickering, Ontario, KW, Toronto. We even have a grade 6 in there joining us today, which is pretty awesome. Move to that next slide. These are our agreements. Guys, we're not professional YouTubers. I know we might look like it, but we're not. And we're not professional broadcasters either. So just be patient with us, please. Let's use that growth mindset. We know that we can't see you, but we're hoping that we can interact as much as possible, as we're showing to be true here in the form, and ask you to keep using that as we carry on together today. So next slide, please, Michelle. So friends, we're going to show a video to you, and up front I'm going to say it's not going to be a whole hour of videos. This video is a little bit long, but we think it's really worthwhile. So it's about 5 minutes. If you've got a bottle of water, you've got a little snack, maybe just enjoy it. We want you to be thinking about, how has CS changed your life or the lives of those around you, particularly in the last year. This video is actually a couple of years old, so you'll see some examples, but be thinking about that, because we're going to ask you that question once the video wraps up. So CS is changing everything, and let's play it, Michelle.
I think 19th century was about the Industrial Revolution, about electricity, about disrupting the agricultural society and making it more advanced. The 20th century was about physics and engineering to do more things easier in our everyday life, from refrigerators to washing machines.
How convenient.
And the 21st century is definitely the digital age. It's the internet.
Even if you want to become a race car driver or play baseball, or build a house, all of these things have been turned upside down by software.
The lettuce bot is a robot that can sense its environment. Every single hour, this lettuce bot is seeing 1.5 million plants, and it's taking individual action on those plants. We enable lettuce growers to have higher yields in their field by helping make it cheaper, by helping produce food in a more sustainable way. And that wasn't previously possible without computer science and technology.
I have a really fun job where we build Polyvore, which kind of combines all my favorite things, so programming as well as fashion and art and design and shopping. Half the products you use these days are software products that you play with on maybe your phone. And so if you want to build something cool, you need to know programming, right? And there's so many things that you can do with computer science. So if you just work backwards from the cool thing that you want to build and figure out what that is, a lot of times computer programming is part of that, right? So you should learn the skill.
It's really exciting right now. The technology that we're developing right now is going to be used by your doctor in in the next decade. When you come into the office and you're sick, the doctor is going to be like, all right, spit in this cup. And I will put it into this magic machine, which is a sequencer. And in an hour, I can tell you what you have or what's wrong with you. So if we're looking for a new virus, for example, we'll download a database of all the viruses that are known. And we'll search for, our sequence of interest against a whole database of all viruses. So you still need somebody to analyze the data. The computer is not smart enough yet.
Our software helps people save energy and thereby reduce their carbon emissions. To date, we've saved over 8 terawatt hours, which is the equivalent of about 1.1 million cars on the road.
When you're forecasting the wind, there's so many different parameters that go into it. It would be impossible for a human to sit down and do all those calculations. We need a computer model in order to forecast it.
I write software which scans images, looking for bad images that we know are illegal. I work very closely with organizations like the National Center for Missing Children. I know that the work that we've done has impacted the life of people. And I feel very strongly about it because there's a lot of social problems right now that could really leverage the use of technology. It's a lot about empowering the people who are there helping the world by giving them the tools to be able to do better. That's something that we can do right now, and the tools available are huge.
The merging of art and technology is getting more and more significant now because computers and software are such an integral part of our lives day to day. People are realizing that it can be quite creative to take this medium of computers and create incredible works of art.
In Finding Nemo, when Crush and Squirt and all the friends are flying through the East Australian Current, you're seeing images of water flowing by, you're seeing the colors on the back of the turtle, you're seeing the sides of the fish. All of those things are generated through math and computer programs that we write that we then give to the artists, and they take that to create that final image and tweak it and make it look beautiful and look fun.
The crux of it is really about invention. It's about looking at the world and being dissatisfied with things and questioning everything.
I always felt like if I didn't learn how to program, it would be like not learning how to read. The future would just be closed to me.
If you're in the coding profession, there's so many things that you can do, and you can pretty much pick and choose the course you want to be in.
I think that you can start something in your college dorm room, and you can have a set of people who haven't built a big company before come together and build something that 1 billion people use as part of their daily lives is just crazy to think about, right? It's humbling and it's amazing.
Really, it's about the chance to reinvent things and then see it out there in the world and see people using it and having fun or having a better life because of something that wasn't there before that you put in the world.
So students, what we would love to have you start doing for us is populating that form and telling us, just thinking a little bit about how has CS changed things in your life or in the life of those around you, particularly in the last year. And I give this funny example. This is one of them. We are doing these sessions with students virtually, and pre-pandemic, we only did these sessions at our Google office in Waterloo. I already have a couple of comments coming in there. Our class is watching from Chatham, which is awesome. Coding has made life easier and more fun. My life has changed because I didn't like coding, and now I love CS First. We Googlers love to hear that as we try to scale CS First across Ontario and Canada. It's helped us learn, doing things online in class, video games, texting friends, helping things grow. I'm not sure if I got that one right or not. Helping us communicate online, playing video games, Netflix. All of those things are great examples. And I guess maybe from me too, my mother is a little bit older, and to watch an 82-year-old do her exercise class virtually because she can't go out and do it is another example of just how things continue to change and iterate and all of these things as a result of CS. Googlers, do you see any other comments in there that we should explicitly pull out? Helping us communicate online, equip me with technologies, it's fun, lots of social media and video games, French immersion, awesome. I guess a few other examples that I think of is just the opportunity for us to still be able to get what we need by shopping online. For sure, being able to look and do things socially a little differently, all as a result of computer science. So with that, we're thinking about all the ways that computer science has changed everything. And I'm going to turn it over to our Googlers. So we have Brooke with us today. We have Jeff with us today. We have Bob with us today and Mackenzie. So I think we're going to start with Brooke. Is it Brooke?
I think it's me.
Mackenzie. All right, Mackenzie. We're gonna
if you can go to the next slide. So hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Clark. I grew up in Kelowna in British Columbia, and I saw a few people in the forum are actually joining us from Kelowna. So that's really exciting for me. And so I moved up to Toronto to study robotics engineering at the University of Toronto. And I did my undergrad degree. So I got my bachelor's there, and I had a focus on socially assistive robotics. So that was very interesting. I got to work on robots that would help blind people and people with disabilities, that it would help them autonomously navigate grocery stores so that they could get everything that they needed. And while I was studying at university, I was actually on the solar car team. So this was one of my more interesting engineering projects. We built a solar powered car from scratch, and we raced it across the United States. So that was a very fun project for me. And then next, my first internship was at Intel, where I was first exposed to software engineering. And that was a very exciting thing. That's where I found my passion for coding. I really didn't like it at first, actually, when I took my first CS class in university, because, back then high schools in BC didn't actually offer coding. And then I did another internship at Google, which is the second photo there on my slide of me and all the interns back when we could, get close together. And I was on the ads integrity team. So what we were doing was trying to prevent viruses and malware from being spread through ads on the internet. So whenever you see an ad and click it, making sure people can't get viruses from that on their computers. And now I work full time. So I just graduated last year, and I work full time now as a software engineer on the cloud healthcare team. And yeah, I think that's all I wanted to share about my path to Google and myself, and I'll pass it off to Bob.
Hi, everybody. Yes, my name's Bob. I grew up in Northern Ontario, a city called Sault Ste. Marie, and I bounced around a bunch of different schools as I was finding my way here. So out of high school, I wanted to study environmental science. I wanted to learn how to protect the earth. And so I studied about groundwater. After that, I took a few years off. I taught English in Japan, and my students there got me excited about computer science. I had some students there that were working on artificial intelligence type things at Panasonic, and I saw that the University of British Columbia had a computational intelligence program that I could take. So I decided that's what I want to do. So I went back there, and my work there, I have a picture of the Aibo robot dog that's made by Sony. And so I was figuring out how to make these dogs play soccer. After that, I went to Queen's to do a master's degree. I studied bioinformatics there, something like what we saw in the video where they were talking about how to do like personalized medicine and that sort of thing. But what I really liked about that were the shapes and working with these proteins. So I came here to Waterloo to do a PhD in geometry. I decided I want to be a professor. So I went to the University of Manitoba after that as a postdoc, working on computational geometry. I actually found a job as a professor, but a friend of mine talked me into visiting Google and just going and having lunch and talking with people there. And so I did that because free lunch is free lunch. And I fell in love with the place. I really liked a lot of the work that people were doing. And so I got hired to work on Google Maps in our Mountain View office in California. I did that for about 5 years, but then I wanted to return to Canada, and I heard about this project that they were starting up here, which is now called Stadia, which is Google's cloud gaming platform. And so I've been working on that ever since.
So good afternoon, everyone, or good morning. My name is Jeff Avis, and I've been at Google now for just over 3 years. And so my journey kind of began at a very early age for myself. Fortunate enough that in the, I won't say my age exactly, but in the mid to late 80s, my father was building and selling computers to other people at the at his work, sort of just as they were becoming popular. So I had a computer at age 6, and I think that that's kind of what sort of set me on the trajectory to be where I am today. Fell in love with computers, could barely get me off the computer. At age 16, I was fortunate enough, my uncle actually got a job at Microsoft, and I got to go out there and visit him and go and see the campus, and I'll never forget it. You know, he had his own office. Back in the day, he had high-speed internet while we were still on dial-up internet. So just sort of really, really sparked with me that this is something I wanted to do for a living. Maybe a quick story there, I'll never forget it. Being in the Microsoft office on a weekend and seeing people run through the hallways with super soakers filled with paint, seemingly shooting each other and not really worrying about the consequences of that. And I was like, you know, I think I could do this. I really like working on computers, and like this looks like the best place possible to work. So it kind of set me down this path. I went to the University of Western Ontario for computer science. Graduating from there, I got my first job at a small company called Crawford. They're an insurance company, not a software company. Kind of got to do a little bit of everything there. So, but quickly realized that I wasn't really maybe doing something meaningful that I really wanted to do. So I transitioned over to a company called D2L, or Desire to Learn. Some of you might use this in your day-to-day. There's a solution called Brightspace. It's used for delivering learning materials. So I worked there. I saw some questions, so maybe I'll just point this out. This was a really great experience for myself. And one thing that it introduced me to was the idea of web accessibility. And so that's kind of how computers can help break down barriers to access, sort of. You know, this computer can be used sort of by anyone with sort of, if you have hearing impairments or visibility, you know, vision issues. The computer is kind of that bridge that can put you on an even playing field with maybe people that don't have that. And so I got to work with a sight impaired person and help develop accessible technology that they could then use. And it was really great. The 3 hexes along there, I put on there just because I think it's maybe something interesting. Those were 3 times that I tried to get into Google and unfortunately didn't get into Google. But when I graduated university, I tried to set a goal for myself that I always wanted to work at Google. And so I tried 3 times, unfortunately didn't make it through. But was able to eventually make it through. And so now I work at Google. I work in our support team. So I help customers that use our cloud products deal with problems when they run into them. And I'm a manager of one of our teams. So.
Hello, my name is Brooke. So my path to Google, it started out where I wanted to be a professional soccer player. I'd never had the desire really to work in an office and to sit behind a desk every day. So I played a lot of soccer. And when I went to university, on a soccer scholarship. And I was a student athlete. And generally speaking, I like to look at it, I was an athlete student. While I was going through school, I decided to pursue a career a degree where I would be able to play soccer as my main job and then, you know, do something where I could earn a living wage on the side. So I figured I could do web design or something remote, which technology allowed us to do. So while I was at school, I ended up breaking my foot and quickly realized that my dream of playing professionally might not be the best one for me to support me long term. So that's when I decided that I would pursue a master's. I ended up doing my master's in computer engineering, which is what my undergrad was in. And while I was going through my master's, I got the opportunity to do research into data semantics, which is trying to figure out the relationships between pieces of data and how to make computers understand that. That in turn landed me my first internship and my first job, where I got to do the exact same thing, but for a company instead of as part of my research. And then from there, I was fortunate enough to get an interview with Google, and I got my first job with Google at Google Seattle, in the Seattle office. After spending about a year there, I transferred back home to Canada so I could be closer to family, and now I'm with Stadia Enchprod, which is the same team Bob is on. Yep. So I was going to jump right into a little bit more about Google. So one of the coolest things about technology, like we saw in that video, is it can be built anywhere by anyone with relatively very little resources. So if you have an idea, or if you really like something, like for me in soccer, we can work on tools and software programs and everything else that can make what we love better, if that makes sense. So Google itself, it actually started in Susan Wojcicki's garage by Larry and Sergey, who are working on their PhD. So it wasn't this massive company right from the beginning. It was two guys working on research in somebody's garage. It actually turned out that Susan became the CEO of YouTube later on, which is super cool. And then Google was built from the ground up, and it started with Google Search. Next slide. Yep. So with Google Search, the mission is to organize the world's information and make it universally accessible and useful. So with this information, Google likes to focus solving larger life problems, and we try to make products for everybody to use and to make everybody's lives easier. So some of these problems, if we jump to the next slide, some of these, not problems, sorry, some of these tools you can see on this screen here as to, you know, all the different tools that Google's making. If you have a moment, can you just pop into the form which of these apps or these icons that you might recognize, which of these tools you might use day to day or your family uses? See if we have anybody who recognizes all of them. One of the coolest things about these tools and about software in general is that it's constantly evolving. And so we're constantly trying to make better tools and improve all of our existing tools. So, yep, I see Zach recognizing YouTube. I see quite a few people who claim that they know all of them. Yeah, Google Meets by Kayla, Tristan, Gmail, G Drive, Google Drive, yep. Oh, here we go. Emmanuel, Chrome, Maps, Gmail, Calendar, Drive, Meet, Presentation, YouTube, Docs, Sheets. That's amazing. That's a lot. Awesome. That's fantastic. Google Assistant, great. So as we evolve technologies and as we grow our tools, sometimes we realize that some of the tools aren't necessarily the best for the future. And so technology allows us to sort of deprecate and grow. So we're able to turn down some tools so that way we can support other tools even better and continue to grow and make better solutions for people. Sweet, I'm going to hand it off to Bob now.
Thanks, Brooke. So I want to show you a couple of the things that we've worked on at Google that maybe you don't know about. Because we work on a wide range of different things. Some of these are what we call like moonshots, where they're just crazy ideas. Let's put some smart people on them and let it run for a couple of years and we'll just see what happens. So in the form, can somebody tell me what some of these things are? In particular, I'm going to start with the thing on the left. It's a car, but I wonder if somebody can tell me what's special about this car. I see someone has said it's a Google car. That's mostly correct, yes. It's actually built by Waymo, which is like a company under Alphabet, which Google is also part of Alphabet, but it started out as part of Google. So I see, yes, Emmanuel says self-driving car. Great job. Yeah, so that's exactly what this is. This is, it's got a bunch of sensors on it, and this car can drive itself. We have a bunch of these running in Arizona right now. So if any of you are calling in from Phoenix, maybe you've ridden in one, let me know. But this is really exciting because I think we started on this as just kind of a cool idea. Let's see if we can build a self-driving car. But the first person that was a non-Googler who rode in the self-driving car was a blind man. And he's someone who, sort of like what Mackenzie was talking about earlier, he was someone who couldn't get to the grocery store on his own. He had to find his way to the bus stop and get on the bus and let the bus driver know where he was going. And then he'd rely on the bus driver to let him know once he was near the grocery store. Whereas here he can just get in this car, tell him I want to go to the grocery store, and the car takes him from his driveway to the grocery store. The thing in the middle is a very special contact lens. I see the Google Eye thingy. It's close, yeah. So what makes this, oh, Harsh said Verily. Well done. Yes, exactly. Yes, this is, so Verily is Google's, well, Alphabet's life sciences company. And so this has a sensor in it that can measure your blood sugar levels. So if you're a diabetic and you need to continually monitor your blood sugar levels, this does it by just wearing this contact lens in your eye. The thing on the right, I see someone said it's Assassin's Creed. That's very good. That is what this is. And this was the first game that we launched on Stadia. When we did our pilot project, before we even knew that it was called Stadia, we were running this game. Now we have a bunch of different games, but what makes this cool was we were challenging the notion that you need to have a console in your house. You can run this game in Google's data center and you're playing at home on your screen, and we can make it work well enough that when you push the button on your controller, the signal from your input has to go to Google's data center. The game renders the impact of your input and sends you the video back, and that has to all happen fast enough that you feel like you're playing locally in your room. And so we're battling the speed of light at various points, but we've built out this thing that achieves that for most people. And next slide. Yeah. So what I want to talk about here is, we are all consumers of technology, like we talked about in Brooke's slide. You see all these apps and programs that Google's made, and we're all using those. But I think what we're here to show you today is that we're also creators of technology. All of us here, we're trying to show you that there are humans that are the human power creating these things that we're all using. And I think it's kind of a crazy concept. It was for me before I joined Google, that there are just so many humans that are building these things. So Google has over 100,000 people that are working on building these things out for you. And I mean, other companies, there are 60,000 people at Facebook, and there are 5,000 people working on Twitter. So all of these programs that we're using and consuming, there's a tremendous amount of human power behind them. And yes, I'll hand it off to Mackenzie now to tell us more.
Okay, so now that we know there's more than 100,000 people working on Google products at all time, which is an insane number of people, if you could just pop in the form how many Google offices you think are in the world. And as we know, this number is always growing. Eugenia said 150. Does anybody else have another answer? Oh, we got 10,000. Okay, so that's maybe a little much. That would only be about, 10 people per office, but that's okay. Okay, we got Nolan saying 160. 70,000. Okay. A little high again, but good answer. So the actual number is 956 offices. So that's all around the world. And now we're going to go to the next slide, and we're going to do a little tour, a video about what some of the insides of Google offices look like. So all of the amenities that we have and everything. So if you could just play that video, Michelle.
Google is a place that I just fell in love with the culture. I fell in love with the energy. There was just a vibe that I wanted to be a part of.
It's just some place where I can never imagine myself getting bored, because we're thinking about billions of users. And so that's a lot of impact that you can have, and it's just really gratifying.
Google is so much at the forefront of technology, and the way that our culture is built, we are always looking for the 10x. We are always looking for the leapfrog innovation.
So you have to be willing to let all your preconceived notions be broken at any moment.
You're gonna have to make your own rules sometimes, and this is actually part of the fun.
I get to try new technologies. I get to implement them in different ways that maybe no other company has done them before. And so you can really go beyond your skill set that you think you have at the moment and push the boundaries.
The part that makes it really fun is there are so many teams across Google that have amazing expertise. And I get to work with these people, not only build something with them, but I learn so much.
Pick any topic and I can promise you there's someone here who is both better at it than you or more knowledgeable, and also, and more importantly, willing to help you learn.
Everybody here is so nice. They're so encouraging. So that's very reassuring to be in a company where people value you.
I am fortunate enough to work with people from a lot of different experience, a lot of different backgrounds, and we use that in our advantage.
It's really the best idea wins. There's a lot of debate, but it's really to bring those different viewpoints together, and that's what we want our products to represent.
We believe the benefits of technology should apply to all, and that's a mission that really is very, very inspiring.
So when I show up at work, I'm able to do all the things that I love, solving hard problems and working for the people that I manage. That makes it worthwhile for me to show up every day.
Awesome. Okay, so now you've seen a little bit about our Google offices. So obviously we've all been working from home for at least a year now. So what we saw in those offices was like a lot of collaborative spaces, you know, people thinking, designing, and working together. And that's a lot of what we do here at Google. You know, I'm a software engineer, but I spend about, 10% of my day at best coding. The other time I'm just talking to people, working with people. So what I really miss about being in the office is kind of having those collaborative spaces where I can go and I can just, bounce ideas off somebody, get a coffee with somebody and talk with them about their feedback on my design. And that's, something that I'm really hoping to go back to the office soon for. But yeah, so now I'll pass it off to Jeff, who's just going to tell us a little bit more about his experience with our office spaces.
Yeah, so what you're seeing here is actually some pictures of our campuses across, I don't know exactly where all the different pictures are from, but this gives you an idea of like the innovative space that we do. I think the bottom picture there with the T-Rex skeleton is in the middle of our Mountain View campus, but you can see some really cool shots from like what the actual inside of the Google office looks like. It's really important at Google to make sure that we're creating like happy and healthy and an important environment so that people can be productive. Lots of different places where we can collaborate. We have our individual desks, but there's lots of conference rooms, lots of collaborative spaces throughout the office. And then, I think really important is we also have places where we can go and sort of take a break and detach. A lot of when you're doing maybe what's called knowledge work, where you're having to think and sort of, really put time into concentrating on trying to solve that difficult problem. It's nice to be able to sort of detach for a little bit and sort of take a break from that. So a lot of our offices have game rooms. In the Waterloo office, we have a pool table. I think every Friday night, our team is up there for a couple hours at the end of the day, sort of just hanging out, playing pool, and just sort of relaxing and de-stressing. And it's kind of nice that, you can do that within the office. Some other things that we're really fortunate to have working at Google is we have micro kitchens. So these are, I don't think you're ever more than 500 feet away as a Googler from someplace where you can access healthy and food. The micro kitchens are all stocked with very good coffee machines, really healthy snacks. If you know where to look, you can find the unhealthy snacks. They're generally hidden away in drawers, but they are there. My kids always enjoy it when they get to come into the office. They know exactly where those snacks are. But other things we do is like we have on-site gym, right? So like me, I now have 3 young children at home. My time to sort of spend outside of work going to the gym and stuff is really constrained. And one thing that Google does is they provide that on-site for me. So, you know, it might seem like a really good perk, but actually it helps me live a better and healthier life, and it allows me to be more productive at work by not having to leave work, and I can still get that. So, you know, and lots of different things. There's lots of places. I mean, they're seeing some pictures here of offices. I've been fortunate enough, I got to travel to Sydney, Australia as part of my, you know, when I first joined Google. Their office is really neat. They actually have like an old streetcar that they put physically into their office and turned into meeting rooms. So every office you'll go to, you'll see different really cool things. But yeah, it's a really great place. And I think what's most important though is that Google does this to try and make sure that you as an employee can sort of achieve the best that you can at work by kind of trying to not have you think and worry about maybe how to get a healthy meal, where to stay fit, like how do you de-stress from the job. They kind of try and bring it all into one place so that you're not having to do that all outside of work, so that when you are at work, you can really focus on work. And so, yeah, and we're all lucky and we get to benefit from it. So we're going to go to the Q&A now. So if you want, and we'd encourage you to start sort of filling out this form with any questions that you want, sort of any questions that you have, anything that we can answer, any kind of discussion that you would like to sort of see. So, you know, about our experience with Google, about computer science, working in tech, kind of anything is open game here. And I'll sort of watch for them and we'll call them out as they come in. So I had one question that somebody submitted and I wanted to quickly go to it. And I thought, let me just find it. Sorry, somebody asked a really good question much earlier on, and I'm just trying to scroll up. We have like over 500 responses to the form right now. So,
Jeff, I saw a question in there that asked how long it took for Google to become a really large company.
So I can try and answer that. So I think it's become a very large company very recently, I would say. So I don't know the exact numbers. We just had the 25th year anniversary, I think, within the last few years that I joined Google. So I think Google was founded in 1999. Is that correct? Or is no, sorry.
1998.
1998. So I joined Google, and I think already there's been like probably 20, I don't even want to know, I think maybe 40,000 people hired since I've joined. So the company's grown very quickly, rapidly. But I would say that it's most of that growth I feel like has happened in the last 5 to 10, you know, 5-ish years where there's been a very significant uptick. I don't know, Bob, are you the longest tenured on the call? I don't know if you maybe have a good thought on this one.
I don't know. I'm coming up to 7 years this month. So that's my Googleversary is coming up. But yeah, I mean, when I joined it, I think it was already a big company. Like as I said, I joined Maps, and we had over 2,000 people on Maps at that time, and ads, you know, there's thousands and thousands of people, and searches, thousands of people. So I think probably it got big once they started expanding beyond search and were taking on these other things that became what we know today.
So we have a question here from maybe Julia. What do you do, and what are your assignments at Google? So maybe Brooke, do you want to talk about that?
Sure. So for me specifically, I am on what we call an EngProd team. So that's engineering productivity. And basically what that means is I build tools to help make my fellow Googlers' jobs and lives easier. And so a lot of what that work revolves around is building infrastructure that allows our developers to write code faster, to test their code faster, and to release their code faster. So that means our developers can get cool products and new features out to customers faster. And I definitely forget the second half of that question. Sorry.
No, it was, what do you do and what are your assignments at Google?
So there you go. That's what I do. And my assignments a lot revolve around, because I do work on Stadia, I have gotten to work a lot with the Stadia controller. And how do we know if we make a change to the Stadia controller that it still works across all of our displays? So that's been my assignment for the last little while. So, yeah.
Maybe I'll ask this question we'll throw over to Mackenzie. What is your favorite part of working with Google? Have you had any tech problems, and if so, how many?
So my favorite part personally about working at Google is the people. I always love the quote, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. And granted, I will never be the smartest person in the room at Google, probably. And so I just I'm always learning on the job. And it's really important to me that I learn from my coworkers and my peers as much as, from the work I'm doing. So I work on the cloud healthcare team. And I'm learning so much about the healthcare industry and, the impact that my work can have on patients, like everyday people that are within the healthcare system. Technical difficulties. So I'm not sure if this question is does my computer break? Or do I encounter bugs in the code that I write? The answer is yes to both. So I am not immune to technical difficulties just because I work at Google. I face them all the time. And, a lot of my job is diagnosing issues in our software as well as fixing them. And so, yeah, I face a lot of technical difficulties on both sides.
Good, yeah. Maybe another question that I see here. And this one comes from Harisha. Do you still make many mistakes? Because that's still good. So maybe I don't know. I work in our support division, so maybe I have a good opinion on this one. But very much make mistakes. I think I don't know if I always look at them like mistakes, but rather learning opportunities is maybe how I would frame it. But yeah, I think one of to me, the reason why I love tech and love working here is that I'm always learning. I look at it like it's a knowledge career or a learning career. Part of, I think, being successful in technology and being successful as a computer scientist or working in these tech companies is that commitment to always learning and always, looking for something that you can use to sort of improve and get better. Or how do you learn from, experiences, or how do you learn new technologies? It's great. Even for me, I've been in the industry for almost 20 years now, but I learn something new every day. And I think, like Mackenzie was saying, working at Google, you're constantly surrounded by really intelligent, really high performing people that you're always learning from. And I think, but most importantly, and I think the video spoke to this, people that are willing to help, that they're here to teach. And I think that that's one of the best things about the Google culture is just how supportive everyone is of everyone else. And so, yeah.
I could just add to that a bit. I think Google does a good job of embodying that. We've heard even today, the growth mindset. And I think Google does a good job of that. We have a blameless culture around bad things happening. And, I can say that I have been involved in events that cost millions and millions of dollars, and nobody gets fired, nobody gets yelled at. It's very much about figuring out what went wrong and how do we learn from it and how do we make sure that the same thing doesn't happen again. And it really makes this culture where people don't hide mistakes. When bad things happen, the first job is just figuring out how to fix it and get everything back on track. And so I think, yeah, it's a good approach to have in work.
Yeah. We have a question here from Jada. Do employees have non-computer science backgrounds? So, Bob, I think maybe you have a fairly diverse background.
Yeah.
But I think it includes a lot of.
I have some computer science now. I did see a question from Marco. He asked how long I went to university, and so I tallied it up on the side, and it was 13 years in total that I spent in university. I started in chemistry, but had computer science in a way. I think, yeah, the vast majority of the people that I work with day to day, have computer science or computer engineering degrees, but there are, people on my team who don't have degrees at all, people that just, went to startups and built a company and then got hired by Google because they're amazingly talented people. And then, there are other roles. We have, building full of lawyers in Sunnyvale. There are design people, and there are many different paths for many different roles at Google. But for the kinds of jobs that I think we're mostly representing as engineers and developers, yeah, it's computer science and computer engineering is the normal path.
I just want to add to that quickly. As I mentioned, I work on the healthcare team, and sometimes I'm actually working with doctors, and some of the people that are on my team, actually one of the women, her education is in nursing. So she became a registered nurse, and then she decided maybe that wasn't the career path for her, and she can still provide value to people at Google, to the software that we build, despite not really knowing how to code. So yeah.
That's great. Question for both Mackenzie and Brooke here. This one's coming from Rhiannon. What is it like entering the industry from university to Google as a young woman?
So I'll take a crack at this first, Mackenzie, and you can follow up, definitely. For me personally, I've had a very fortunate time from university through to my career. In university, my academic advisor was a woman, and she was an incredible person. And straight through from when I got my first internship, my first job, everybody I have interacted with has been incredibly supportive, and many of these people have turned into my mentors. I feel as a woman, you always have to be on the lookout for people that you can learn from and you can grow from, and who can help mentor you throughout it. And I mean, this is true advice for everyone. It's not just women. But for me personally, the one thing that I tend to do now is I really want to try to encourage more women into the industry. And so in order to do that, I take part in groups like this and in talks like this, because, you don't have to know how to code when you're 10, 11, 12 years old. You don't have to love computers when you're a kid. I mean, the very first time I wrote a Hello World program was college. And so it's never too late to get into it. And especially today, there's so much support and guidance that you can find within the industry. So, Mackenzie, if you want to add to that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say that my career path was not all positive. In some of my internships, I had some people say some not very nice things to me that I will not be repeating over this call, that were very discouraging to me, and kind of undermining a lot of women in technology just by being said out there in the open. And I think that, as Brooke mentioned, having good kind of mentors and people to encourage you and push you in the right direction when you're not really sure what to do next, was really very important to me. And that's kind of how I ended up at Google personally. And as for right now, being a young woman in the industry, it's really important that I continue having these mentors and creating new ones. So something that I recently struggled with was not having any women in my reporting chain. So I couldn't see myself in the future moving up through the ranks. And that's just kind of a problem. And as Brooke said, that's why I'm here doing this talk. And I'm hoping that some of you see a future in software engineering by seeing Brooke and I with that current position.
Awesome. Maybe we can all speak to this one because I'm sure it's different for everyone. But Momin and Michael ask here, what coding languages do you use and how much Java is used? So I actually don't code technically on a day-to-day basis for my job. I do use code in my job, but it's not like a coding role. I'll typically use whatever I need to at the time. So I'll use Python if I'm trying to reproduce an issue with Python, Java if I need Java, JavaScript if I need to do something. So thankfully, I can use quite a few languages, and so I can sort of use the tool that's most appropriate for the job there. But I think at Google, we use a wide variety of languages. I don't know if everyone wants to speak the language that they work in, because I'm sure that there's variety even among us and kind of the language that you're all using.
So for me personally, there's an internal tool that we can look up, and it tells you how many languages you've actually submitted code in. And I think I'm up to like 18. Don't ask me what they are because I don't know. And that just keeps growing, and I don't know what But day to day, I mostly use Golang, and then occasionally Python and C++.
I think what's important there is it's not so much about the language you know, but it's more about the concepts that you know and how to apply them to the different languages. I think once you have those fundamentals, every language just has maybe a slightly different way about doing the same thing. And so it's sort of, it's almost like you're a carpenter. Your languages become different tools, and you just pick out the right one to use at the right time. So don't ever be intimidated thinking you need to learn 10 languages at once. Get proficient at one, and then the other ones become easier and easier. Depending, like maybe not Scheme and Lisp, which is maybe a different topic, functional programming languages, but yeah, the normal ones there. So.
Jeff, might I just jump in for a minute? So I'm just taking a look at our time and recognizing that we only have a few minutes left with everyone. But I do see a question there that says, where do I learn how to code? And I think maybe that would be an appropriate way for us to sort of tie things in. So first of all, I don't do any coding, but I am passionate about children having the opportunity to code in the classroom. And all of these Googlers here with us today, along with Michelle from Cobblestone, have been working to help kids with an opportunity to code in the classroom with a program called CS First. It's a block-based coding program, and it is free. So it is more for ages 9 to 14. If any of you out there have not seen it, you could take a look at it, but maybe more age appropriate for high school would be code.org. Google doesn't have anything to do with code.org, but it's definitely what we consider to be that next step if you've already become fairly proficient at block-based coding. So there's always those opportunities for you to dig in and learn. And there's a number, just Google it, and there's a number of other ways that you can hop in as well. So again, just in the name of time, first of all, Brooke and Mackenzie and Jeff and Bob, you've done an incredible job of just sharing with our students a little bit about computer science, a little bit about Google, a little bit about the way that you found the path to Google. And students, we don't want you to think that we all want you to come and work at Google, although that would be fantastic. That's not the goal. The goal is really just to excite you about finding your own way. And so on the screen right now, and you might want to just old school, either use your phone and take a picture of it or screenshot it. Here are a couple of resources that you could take a look at as far as next steps. So I mentioned CS First. I mentioned code.org. Our grade 12 students, anybody who's in grade 12 right now who is accepting to go to a computer science program next year can apply for our Computer Science Summer Institute. And that's at the link that we've provided there for you. It's a free camp that we provide to students. It'll be online, virtual again this year, just to help connect you with other people at Google to provide a foundation for you and to teach you a little bit about coding. So if you're interested in that, please take a look. Applications are due by the end of March. Michelle, if we could go to the next slide. Here's, again, just another place for you to look, more for high school students. Just take a look at google.com/students and just learn a little bit more. Maybe it's not computer science in particular, maybe it's something more tech related, but we do have a number of roles in marketing, in business, in communications. We've got lawyers, we've got salespeople, government policy. So take a look at that link if you're interested. And lastly, once you are considering, or if you are considering a career at Google, there's great resources online. And we so badly want people who are interested and excited to come and work at Google that we help you with things like how do you write a resume, or how do you interview, or what are some of the steps that you need to take to prepare yourself for that final role. So all of those resources available to you. And just really quickly now, Michelle, if we could go to the next slide, please. I see we're short on time, but let's just have a final word from each of you. Maybe we'll go Brooke, Jeff, Mackenzie, and Bob.
Sure. Real quick, the final word I love to use is approach everything with a not yet attitude. And then what that means is just because you can't do it right now doesn't mean you won't be able to do it tomorrow. Continually try, and, you know, continue growing, continue learning, and great things will come.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think what seems exciting for me is just the opportunity and how prolific computers are in everyday life and the resources that are available to young people. So I see a lot of interest. How do we get into coding? I think, like Sandy just mentioned, there's resources there, but like I think the resources that everyone has today are quite incredible and really open up that door. For me, you know, I learned out of textbooks, like no YouTube, no videos. There's YouTube now, there's online coding tutorials, there's boot camps, there's all of these things. I'm building a Roblox game with my 7-year-old son right now, and that's involving a lot of coding, right? Like when I was 15, if that would have been something for me, I would have just like been over the moon with it. So I think like try and find those opportunities, like you can sort of introduce yourself into the coding thing sort of anywhere. And the one thing that I've been giving people advice on is like, don't look at coding as like necessarily something you need to be a software developer, but look at coding as a skill that sort of you can pick up and use in any career, anything you do. You know, traditionally it's been only software developers, but I think as we sort of see it going forward, it can be used anywhere. So.
Yeah, and on that topic, you know, all problems that we're facing currently in the world can be benefited from computer science and software engineering. You know, it will help you solve any problem that you face in your life. Well, that's my experience anyways. And yeah, I think if you just stick with it, you'll find that it's really, really useful and helpful in life.
I just want to come back to the growth mindset again. So I hope we've given you the sense that, you know, there are just a bunch of people working in tech that are building these products that we use. And if we all just played it safe all the time, innovation would be far slower and we wouldn't be able to build kind of crazy new things. And so it's, you know, a great approach when you're taking on things like this to try things that might fail, you know, and yeah, like make mistakes, break things, but always, you know, be learning and growing and, you know, live up to your potential.
Awesome. Thank you very much to our Googlers who have volunteered their time. So I'm going to give you my own round of applause and shout out for joining us and helping our students to see the human power behind the compute power. And students, we really hope that you've learned a little bit about finding your way. It's not a pathway. There's not one way to whatever your future holds for you. It's you finding your own way. So we are here to support you. Hopefully those websites might provide a little in the way of resources for you. Good luck on that journey. And if you wouldn't mind taking a minute and giving us a little bit of feedback on this session today in the form, if you could, grow something that we maybe could consider doing differently next time, and a glow, maybe something that you enjoyed about this session. So keep learning, have fun as you find your way. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.